All right, we are live, and hey everybody, I know it's Sunday. It's a strange day for me to be doing this. I've sort of been teasing this a little bit though, and I just made a decision. I am going to change the day that I do live streams. It used to be Tuesday, now it's going to be Sunday every week. And right now it is 6 o'clock Eastern, 5 o'clock Central where I am. I am actually going to start doing this at 11 a.m. Central, which is 12 p.m. noon Eastern, and 9 a.m. Pacific moving forward. And my QAs, my interviews, I reserve the right to do additional stuff on top of this, but my intention is to move my Tuesday live stream to Sundays moving forward. It makes it easier for me to live my life, is the simplest way to say it. And also, I believe Sunday's a better day for everybody. People are much more available on Sundays. And so, for those of you that are new, I'm Marc, and I am known on YouTube as Truepokerdealer. And I've helped teach thousands and thousands of people to be poker dealers in the casino industry and in home games and in card rooms and across different parts of the world. And I do QAs here, and right now you're more than welcome to ask anything that you want. And as you can see in the background, I've got some Texas Card House background going right now, and that's partly because my next 6 months I will very likely be dealing here a lot. I haven't experienced what it's like to do more than 40 hours a week as a dealer in a while, and in order for me to stay relatable, I decided that I wanted to do that. And it's pretty cool money too. So, me being able to get that information for myself for how much that'll be is something I'm definitely looking forward to. And also, I'm almost 40 now, and I sort of have to take an assessment for what it's like on my body to work 40 hours as a dealer. And I'm going to try to even push for more than that. So I'm pretty excited about that. And yeah, so I'm here for an hour doing Q&A. Anything that you guys want to ask, I'm happy to talk about. If you don't have anything you want to ask, I'll just free flow and talk about things that are interesting to me. Again, I am back in Texas. I'm back in Dallas. I am back to, more of my normal life after life circumstances in my own personal life threw me off from my current path. So here we go again, back to being in Texas, and I'm enjoying it. I've been back for one shift so far. It was a pretty smooth shift overall. I did have an instance. I did have an instance for a little bit where I had a stomach ache while I was dealing, and I wasn't sure if I was going to throw up or not, honestly. And I was trying to decide, how do I want to handle that? And sometimes people bring that question up, what do you do if you need to all of a sudden have an emergency? And so you sort of have to be responsible as a dealer. If you feel like there's a reasonable chance you won't get enough notice with your own body and your own self, and you're going to have to exit the situation of dealing and go somewhere, you have to be preventative about something like that. And it didn't quite get to that point with me. I was always in a place where I was like, I can make it until my next push. And if I get tapped out, but if you ever do have an emergency or believe that you might have no control over yourself, I've been a pit boss floor in table games and watched a dealer throw up under the table before. They were dealing roulette, and I had to handle that situation as their supervisor. That was pretty intense. If you're ever a dealer and you know for sure that you can make it, great, make it and evaluate it when you get tapped out from the table. But otherwise, call the floor over immediately and have them tap you out, because nobody wants to be more inconvenienced than having to deal with your vomit under a table or anything like that. They would much rather get you tapped out, even if it's hard for them to figure out how to pull that off, and give you the freedom not to have that situation come up. Lil Venice, hey, what's going on? You said, why are you moving to full time? I missed the first part. So what I was trying to say is, I'm not moving to full time, for real. It's more like for something like 6 months, I'm going to be grinding that 40 hours just so that I can experience what that's like, and just be more immersed into it and sort of see what it's like on my body and all that. I mean, if 2 months go by and me trying to do like 40 to 55 hour weeks is way too much for me, then I'll pull it back. But I a lot of people think about trying to be full-time poker dealers, and I sort of want to do due diligence here to figure out if that's something that's fair to them. And also, I have some entrepreneurial goals for myself. And just like I always say, dealing poker is a great way to achieve your financial goals. So I'm going to be making a lot more money by dealing a lot more hours. It's a very simple 1 + 1 = 2 formula. And I can, I like to take actions that have multiple positive benefits to me overall. So I'm going to be doing that too. And I will be able to throw money at things that I need to by having worked more. But I'm especially curious because I want to figure out ways for myself to sort of manage the extra stress on your body dealing all these extra hours, and see what tools there are that I can purchase and sort of what I can do for any of that. But I'll give you a for instance here. Okay, Texas Card House Dallas is a unique room. All right, I don't know how long it's going to be like this, but right now it's a great place to deal. There's lots of games all the time there, and because of that, there are people who are looking to give up their shifts, so you can always pick up extra shifts and all that stuff. So when I'm saying I'm going to be doing this, I haven't even talked to the person who does the scheduling there yet to confirm this. All I've done so far is I picked up 5 days this week. I'm going to be working 8 a.m. Central Time, Monday through Friday of this week at Texas Card House, and it's not that hard as someone that deals there to be able to get shifts right now in the current climate the way that it is. So that's sort of what I'm looking at and where I'm coming from here. Let me see. Do I want a different background for this? I sort of want a different background for this, I think. Like, I like the background that's here right now, but do I love it? I don't know. What else do I got? I sort of like this one better. Let me roll this one in as the background. Make it bigger. Oh, it's already is there? No. Why is it doing that? Interesting. Oh, that's why. I think I like this better. Yeah. So that's sort of what I got going on. I'm pretty excited about it, and I mean, I'm a little bit scared too. Dealing that many hours per week could be too much for me. I'm fortunately in a situation where I can always adjust myself if that's what's needed. But I want to try to make it for the 6 months or so and make it work. And once I have a set schedule, I'll put my set schedule up and let you guys know when it's going to be that I'll be dealing. And anybody can come say hi anytime, as always. Always appreciate people doing that. Lavina says, I know you said that if you had your own poker room, your dealers would all be part-time because 40 plus hours could be too much. Yeah, I totally feel that way. A lot of that, though, is through other people who are full-time dealers telling me what it's like for them, combining that with my own experience of what it's like dealing, long shifts or long days or back to back. Like when I've dealt, I haven't ever had a full-time position, but I have done the on-call thing. So, for example, I was at the Hard Rock in Hollywood, Florida. Great room to deal at. And when I was there, it was about 4 months that I was there, 3.5 months or so, and I was on call. And they scheduled me 5 or 6 days a week for like 3 months, And that was a lot. It really was. But was I really doing everything that I could to preserve myself? I'm not 100% sure. So I've never really been full-time, and also it wasn't every week. I was on call, and therefore I would get a different schedule every week, and it would be based on their needs. And at the time, they needed a lot of shifts from me. But there were weeks where I only had to work 3 days. So I want to put this grind in and see what it's like. And like I said, I've got stuff I would do with the money if I can make it through this grind that will be beneficial to me. So I'm looking forward to that side of it as well. And I do generally believe that part-time is the best thing to do as a poker dealer, but I also haven't ever tested that myself, and I do feel some obligation to go in and test that. And I also feel like I want to. There haven't been very many times in my life where I've actually said, you know what? I don't want decision-making power on what my schedule's like. I just want to go in, have a schedule that is my life. And I mean, as an entrepreneur, I've been now going for about 5 years as an entrepreneur, and every single second of every single day is a decision, except for when I'm locked into things that I've already committed to. So for me, taking some of the pressure off myself for decision making and spending more time dealing is definitely valuable. Do I know for sure that I'm going to do this for the full 6 months? No, but I'm starting out trying this way, and I'm very curious to see how it goes. CNF, hey, how's it going? The room I'm in only has a couple full-time dealers. Everyone else is part-time. Right. So I'm not going full-time in the sense of I'm stealing a full-time schedule. You know, like I mentioned, Texas Card House in Dallas is in a unique situation where there are just a lot of shifts available. They have a ton of dealers hired, and they still have more shifts available than dealers. And also, a lot of the dealers that are there are always looking to give up shifts. So it's not that difficult for somebody at Texas Card House Dallas today, coincidentally, not sure how long this is going to last for. It's not that hard for somebody in this poker room that I happen to be at to be able to work 5 or even 6 days a week. And, you know, I'm hoping to experience this right now. It's sort of a cheater's way to have a full-time schedule. Jim says, I live in Greece and I would like to work in a casino as a dealer in the future. Now I am 17 years old. Can I work in the USA in the future? So I don't know exactly what the, let me see. I don't know how it works if you're a non-citizen trying to be a poker dealer in the US. Let me think. I know a lot of people that have done stuff like that. I just don't know their circumstances. Who would I even ask that question to right now? Let me see. How does somebody... So the 17-year-old part, you're not old enough. You have to be 18 or 21. Most places are 18, I think, for an employee. But yeah, I just don't know. Here's what I would say. If you call up an HR department for any major casino in the United States, just get them on the phone. You know, you'll have to call a few of them. HR departments can be tough to get a hold of, but call them up between the hours of 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. their time and basically ask them, like, hey, do you hire 18-year-olds from other countries? How does it work? You should be able to get an answer for that. Those phone calls, you know, you might have to call 3 or 4, like I said, in order to get somebody who you can actually talk to. But human resources departments, once you get in touch with one of them for one of the poker rooms, you should be able to get your answers. And if you're wondering, how do I reach out to the human resources department at a particular casino, you literally just call the casino and say, can I speak to human resources? And they might ask you who you are, and they might not even ask you. And so just depends on each casino's policy procedure, how their phone lines are, how busy they are, all that type of stuff. So you'll be able to get an answer from them for sure, though. The human resources department in any casino can tell you what they're willing to hire, what they're able to hire, and what citizenship or anything like that is needed in order to be able to do it. So I don't have an answer, but I have a path for your answer. So hopefully that's helpful, Jim. Dan says, what you think of either Mikey or Mickey? I don't know who that is. So let me look up who you're talking about. I'm typing in Mickey Poker. I see heads up analysis. Mickey versus Andy. Professional gambler goes crazy. Is this one of the... is this a poker player? Let's see. Well, let me type this now. Mickey Hendon Mob. Let's see if he's somebody like that. I see Mickey Knowles. No. All right. So who is it? You gotta tell me who Mickey is, because I'm not sure I understand. Lil Venice says you'd have to get sponsored by the casino, but it's a lot of time and paperwork. I mean, I'm aware of like H4B or H1Bs or whatever those are called. I'm aware to the extent that I forget which one of those it is, right? I'm not sure that's the only way to do it, but I would still call human resources. They're going to give you a specific answer for your specific case as well. And there could potentially be ways to do it. But I definitely appreciate that response, Lil Venice. I mean, that is something I'm familiar with. I thought about responding with that, but the real answer is I don't know the exact answer, and human resources will. So because of that, I don't want to start saying here. I have a lot of information I spit out constantly about stuff and related to casinos and poker rooms, and I like to make sure that the stuff that I'm saying is true for the cases that I'm speaking of, and so that's why I refer him through the way to figure it out himself instead of me saying the stuff that I anticipate would probably be the answer. JP says, what are the tips per hour in the US for a normal stake game, for example 1-2 or 2-5, etc.? Well, I mean, the simplest way to say it, 1-2 and 2-5 fall into the typical games that you make money at as a dealer, that you deal as a dealer, and they're probably the two most common games that you deal. I mean, pot limit Omaha is becoming more and more common nowadays in the U.S., but 1-2 and 2-5 no limit Texas Hold'em cash games are by far still the most common thing that you're going to deal when you go into any given poker room as a dealer. And I think that they're pretty much on point if you blend the two of them with what you'll make in most poker rooms, and that ends up being 25 to 40 plus an hour, and that is just consistent. Now that does include your base pay in a lot of cases, but I mean that really is the answer in the US. You're looking at, as long as you have, you know, enough tables in the room, which 99% of rooms are going to be just fine when it comes to this, and they'll have the right number of dealers and the right number of tables or something close, you're going to be in that $25 to $40 an hour range. That's been my experience and the experience of many people that I've talked to over the years. David says, do you have to be licensed in Texas to open one of the social card clubs? I called a guy up here in Michigan who tried to open one. The gaming board shut him down, sadly. Although he did say that he will fight it, which should set legal precedent up here. Also, talking about pay, I saw a guy tip $500 one single pot on stream last night. It was at the lodge. So, the first part of this, do you have to be licensed in Texas to open one of the social card clubs? You know, the word licensed is a little bit vague the way that you're using it. So for me to answer that question correctly, the answer is yes, but it's you have to be licensed as a business in order to run a business, right? So it's not like you get a gaming license by the state of Texas. And I absolutely do not have the correct information for how to go about opening a social card club in Texas. I have little bits of insight. I know that the politics are challenging. I know that most of the people that try to open card rooms are not intelligent enough or savvy enough with the way that they approach it to be able to navigate this stuff. And I think that if you're considering investing in anyone that's opening a room in Texas, that you have to almost know enough to be able to do it yourself in order to make a good decision on an investment. Because I have seen many people try to open rooms out here that just haven't understood either the politics or the business or business in general, and they have failed miserably as a result of it. So not a casino gaming license, but there are definitely licenses that are required in order to be able to open businesses in any place. Now, that being said, talking about someone in Michigan who had a gaming board shut him down, I mean, I understand that in Michigan is probably more similar to most states where any version of what we consider to be gaming goes through the gaming board. I mean, that's just not the case in Texas. This is sort of a different thing when it comes to poker rooms and card rooms. They're, selling a seat, and the gaming is like being done in these establishments that are almost outside of what you would consider to be gambling, because the laws of Texas allow for certain things because it's Texas, right? So in Michigan, it doesn't surprise me that somebody who would open, and I don't mean to be disrespectful and say that maybe the person who opened this room didn't know what they were doing or weren't intelligent enough or anything like that. I don't know any of the situation you're really talking about. I haven't done any research in Michigan. But that being said, if you're saying that somebody tried to open a room and the gaming board shut them down, that means to me, without knowing any info in this situation, that particular individual did not have the right information going into it. Technically up here, they also have charity card rooms that are allowed to take a rake, but 55% of the rake must go to the charity. I'm familiar with structures like that, and in those cases, there's just so much to it, honestly, is the only thing that I can say. However, a charity card room can only have 20K USD out at any one time. Interesting. Yeah, and so just to finish that, the getting shut down by something that's claiming it's through the gaming board, really hard to win, because they have specific law and requirements, and if you don't meet those requirements, then you get shut down, and then you have to change. You can't really change them, is what my guess would be in most cases. But look, I wanna go back to this. I don't understand exactly what happened. I don't know who this person is. It's like when somebody asks me, hypothetically, for this floor call, what would you do? I tend to be very careful about answering that, because the actual circumstance of what happened for the floor call can change so much based on the information that I'm given. So in this case too, I wasn't there. I don't have information about what happened, and you're not even telling me what he violated that got it shut down or anything like that. So, he could be totally in the right for all I know. Just to be clear on that. And then in terms of what you said about the $500 tip in one single pot on the stream last night at the lodge, yeah, that happens. Being a poker dealer can be awesome sometimes. Dan said he is a professional. Actually, I want to go on a quick tangent here. So a couple of dealer friends of mine were talking about Maryland, and they said there was one day where a pro baseball player came in to play on one of their bigger games, and there were 3 poker dealers that all lived together. And this is a true story. The first one came home, and he had dealt to this player once, and he had gotten a $500 tip, and he left that day. It was a good table. On top of that, he left that day with maybe $1,500 or $1,050, and he was just like amazed. That was more than he would ever normally make. And so the next dealer comes home that day that lives there about an hour later, and the first dealer says to the second one, "I guarantee you that I did better than you today." Okay. The second one says, no chance. And it turned out that the second one happened to hit him twice, and he had $1,500 that day. Because when I say hit him, it means that he pushed him pots twice that were large, and he got $500 2 times, along that journey. And so the two of them were just like so excited, and the first one was just mind blown that he didn't beat the second one, right? The third one comes home like 5 or 6 hours later, and the first 2 tell the third dealer, "There's no chance that you beat the second dealer today. He did unbelievably well." The third dealer says, "I guarantee you that I beat you." They put $100 on it, and dealer number 3 kept dealing to that player over and over again, because by the end of the night, there were only like 5 tables in the room, and he kept going back to that table. And he left that day with about $4,000 in tips. So he crushed them. And being a poker dealer, you run into days like that, where just like everything that you know about dealing poker and the amount of money that you make is just completely out the window. And sometimes you just absolutely crush it, which is pretty cool. So Dan, he said he's a professional gambler, 90% high stakes win rate, apparently. Oh, I see. So this Mickey guy is supposedly, supposedly winning let me see. Okay, that's something I'm going to have to look into, because I don't know. I don't have any opinion on it, and I'll start asking people about it. I don't know anything about him, and I appreciate the insight into that. I will look into Mickey. I'm going to have to do it and then respond in a future live stream. But for next Sunday, so for anyone that didn't hear it before, I'm moving my live streams to Sunday. I like doing it on Tuesday, but this is the way that I want to do things moving forward. And I think Sunday is just a better day overall, and I think when everybody gets used to it, Sunday is going to have more people here that have time, that aren't stuck doing other things. And football, I'm not trying to compete with football, obviously. Like, I don't consider myself as even competitive to football, but anybody that's watching football that wants to talk about poker or dealing poker, they can take a few minutes away from football too. Like, this is the type of thing that you can interrupt what you're doing in order to get what you want out of it. One of the things that I'm proud of, by the way, for my live stream is that anybody can come ask me a question, and you don't have to spend the entire time with me, right? Like, you can pop in anytime you want, ask your question, and then pop back out. No problem at all. So let's see. JP says, in Greece, the card houses are not legal and they only play with fake money. How can you get good in real games when you cannot join a lobby or good gaming hall that is legal? You're saying as a dealer, how do you get good when you don't have any way to actually practice? I mean, the thing that I would say is I try to communicate this in terms of becoming a poker dealer and what the journey's like. There's 2 phases to it. This is just the reality of it. Phase number 1 is passing the audition so that you can get the job. Along that journey, you're learning everything you need to know in order to be able to pass that audition. But your journey's not done at that point because you're not an experienced dealer just by getting to the point where you can pass an audition. You have to spend about 2 to 12 months at the job in order to actually become good. So there is no real shortcut to the question that you're asking. Your phrasing is, how can you get good, right? Or how can you get good in real games? You can't. You cannot become like excellent as a poker dealer until you get 2 to 12 months dealing poker regularly in real games. There's no other way. Okay, now I could tell you deal charity. I could tell you deal home games. I could tell you all that stuff. I could tell you get a bunch of your friends together, play fake money and all that stuff. But the situations just aren't going to come up. They're not going to be the same. So the real answer is, yeah, you do actually have to deal in real games in order to get good for real. Now, if you want some shortcuts that can bring you some of the way, along that path, you could do things like set up an interview with me, not an interview, a one-on-one video session where I basically audition you. I call it a feedback session, and I give you that feedback, correcting things along the way that you're doing. I do stuff like that. I'm willing to do stuff like that. It's a separate charge on top of the other things that I do. And if you feel like you're ready for it, that will help you get closer to being able to pass an audition, or it will help you refine things. But you do need a setup of some sort at home where you can do that. That includes felt, cards, chips, and a dealer button, a cut card, and the ability to stream the video of yourself doing that. I do that all the time, but at the same time, it's not right for everybody. It depends on your personal situation and circumstance. But I do appreciate that comment and question, and hopefully, JP, if there's anything else that you want to ask related to this, please follow up. Especially if you aren't quite satisfied with the answer, make sure that you ask what you need to ask in order to get what you want. I'm trying to give you what you want in there. Let's see. Lil Venice says, do the social clubs in Texas care if you test positive for THC to deal? I don't know. I imagine that that's an individual business preference, and I honestly don't even know whether or not Texas Card House tests for stuff like that. They very well might. I'm not sure. I know that Texas in general, the state of Texas, is not very pro marijuana, so that in itself would lean me toward telling you to be careful. But I can say this, in the entire industry, in my experience, okay, this could change any day, this could be different than I understand it, but in my personal experience, in my anecdotal experience with other people that I know in the industry across the country of the US, I don't know anybody who has ever had to take a drug test beyond their original attempt to get the job or change positions. Sometimes they make you go back through gaming in order to change positions. So if you can just not do it for a while, pass a test, and then if you want to do it again after that, I wouldn't recommend doing it and coming to work. It'd be really hard to deal like that. But let me say that it wouldn't surprise me if some people do that. I certainly don't. There's no chance in the world that I could ever function as a poker dealer at this job if I had any of that in my system. Just like I would also never recommend alcohol in your system when you're dealing. Although there are some charity events and stuff like that let people who are dealing drink, and that's totally different. It's just, when you're dealing with large amounts of money for people, man, not being able to multitask. I think of as marijuana as preventing multitasking. That stuff would just be really challenging. Let's see. David says, I appreciate your thoughts. I hope he sets legal precedent. He said the guys that raided him had a look on their face of they messed up. When I talked to him on the phone, he said he was going to fight it with his lawyer. That's interesting. That's in reference to what we were talking about earlier with the individual who tried to open a room in Michigan. Yeah, and it's also really hard to tell what leads somebody down the path of deciding to shut down a room, right? Like, what is the state paying attention to? What are their motivating factors? A lot of people think that the rooms that get shut down are being shut down because they're in somehow violation of something, right? But probably the most pressure the most pressure to shut down a room that's not wanted, would be by the quote unquote customers, right, of the state. So in any given state, you have sometimes casinos that have paid for licenses. They're paying $1 million, $2 million a year in order to be able to have their casino, and they're paying taxes to the state on top of that. And their opinion is, we're paying the state so much money, there shouldn't be any competition that we don't want, right? We had a certain understanding that there would only be so much competition. Now there's more competition. So these businesses essentially become the customers of the government. They become the customers of the state. And so the state can definitely receive a lot of pressure like that too. Because in reality, that is sort of the transactional relationship that begins to exist there. This is why I say it's like super complicated. I have no idea. When I hear that a room that opened up got shut down in Michigan, I don't know where that's coming from. I don't know where that energy or momentum is coming from to shut them down. It could be from so many different possible places. It could be the neighborhood that they went into doesn't want it. It could be there could be people that are donating large amounts of money to the government in that neighborhood. This happens in Texas sometimes, and so the government officials end up just shutting down anything that tries to open in that location. It's so hard to tell, so many different possible angles. David says, I doubt they drug test, bro. Referring to Lil Venice's question about social clubs in Texas. There's so many different companies in Texas that do it that I just don't feel like I have any ability to speak on behalf of all of them for what they all do, because it would shock me if they all do the same thing. Dan said, okay, thank you. You're welcome. Huso says, doing good? Yes, doing good. Levi, hey Mark, Yassi and I are watching. Appreciate that. Happy to see you guys. Hey Yassi. Okay, fine. On that note, now I have to go check something out, because I know that if you're watching me, then you're also watching a bunch of these baseball games that are going on right now. So let's see. I see the Red Sox are winning 7-5. I assume that you're rooting against them. The Mariners, I see, are losing 7-3. This is the very last day. Oh, the Yankees won 1-0. All right, so you guys are probably pretty happy, and that's probably why you jumped on here. Levi was on my last live stream, if I remember correctly. I think it was my last one. Yeah, when we were evaluating if his friend should quit his day job to be a poker dealer. And congratulations on your Yankees win. I am from the Boston area. If you know that and you heard me congratulating somebody, please don't take it to heart. He's a good friend of mine, and I know how passionate he is about this team. And I could absolutely start speaking negatively about the Yankees, but now that the Red Sox have won a few times, being a Red Sox fan is different than it used to. Let's see. But I like seeing you guys there. Also, side note, somebody mentioned to me that Tom Brady's going back to play in New England tonight, and I might actually check that out. That's pretty interesting. D1 Key says, hey, Mark, what's going on? David says, do you think the best way to learn the business, open a card club, would be to work a stint as a dealer in a regulated land-based? It's something where I would want to learn the floor job as well. That's a really good question. And Levi says Boston versus New York is now very probable. Yeah, I'm noticing that actually. I think Toronto is going to end up being one game back, assuming that the Red Sox hold on here. And Seattle just lost. All right, David, it's a great question. Number one mistake that people make when they try to open poker rooms is they think poker rooms can be profitable. I play poker. I understand poker. Wrong. Okay. So if somebody has been a poker player and they want to open a room, they are almost definitely way over their head. That person would have to get unbelievably lucky to hire somebody that knows so much about the industry. And I've seen it happen a couple of times. And it's very hard to hire the right person or even know what to look for if you don't know the industry yourself. Okay. I can tell you that I've done the following. I have dealt poker. I have dealt table games. I have supervised poker. I have supervised table games. I have been a shift manager in poker, meaning at any given time, I was the one during that particular shift that was responsible ultimately for all operations in poker. The director was above me, and I would try to reach out to him if anything was extremely severe, but I needed to have all the answers. I have also worked closely with multiple directors. I've done consulting with poker rooms that are opening. I've done consulting with existing poker rooms in order to get their operations running better. I have close friends that are directors. I've had many conversations with directors. I've been to the TDA Summit. Okay, I'm saying all this stuff, and I still feel like I don't know enough to open a poker room. And I want to be very clear about that, and I consider myself to be intelligent when it comes to this world. Why do I say I feel like I don't have enough info? I feel like I could go and do it, but there is so much to knowing how to open a business like this. It is mind-blowing, okay? The thing that I would say is, in order to learn how to do this, you almost need to fail at doing it somewhere first, right? Or you need to learn the bit. You do want to, I would say, like, I encouraged the owner in a poker room recently who was asking me questions about how to evaluate if their staffing levels were correct. I encouraged the owner to drop what they were doing and be a floor in the room for 2 months. I think I might have said 1 month, but whatever it was, truly learn the job. Okay, it's helpful, right? The reason I'm saying all this is because people really underestimate what it takes in order to run this room. Like, I recently did consulting with a room in Virginia, and I helped them open a couple weeks ago when I happened to be driving by, and that was a cool coincidence that I got to be a part of. And they're amazing people out there, and they were blown away at once they actually opened. They were blown away at what they hadn't experienced before and what they didn't know. And it's just like, there's so many details that go into what it takes to run this. Now, in their case, they're fortunate because they're an established business that's been in existence for a while, that brought poker into their established business. So they know how to be owners of a business. They know how to do all this other stuff. It makes it a lot easier. But I mean, if they hadn't found the right people in order to run their room, it would have been next to impossible. That's what I'm trying to say. So let me see. If I were to give advice for what to learn in order, I would say be a dealer for at least 2 months. Be a floor for at least 2 months. And I'm trying to think of how else you do it. Like, the traditional path is to work your way up to becoming a poker director, and then even as that, sometimes you don't get the ownership side of it from that. And then on top of that, like, you not only have to be a poker director, you have to do it somewhere where there's people you can learn from. I don't know, man. If you're looking for a specific path, like, I could probably get you as close as anybody. Maybe reach out to me, and you can bounce everything you want off me, and I'll give you insight into the industry. But this is why it's so hard. Casinos are owners of poker rooms most of the time, and they have so much stuff that's already set in place with HR departments and surveillance teams that the poker room doesn't even have to worry about. Like, if you become a poker director, you're typically not worrying about security. You're typically not worrying about surveillance. You're typically not worrying about any of this stuff. You're not worrying about the cashiers. You're literally just in your own poker department, and it's still about as much as you can handle. I give a ton of credit to these rooms that are opening in Texas, but there's very few of them that do it really well. Like, that's one of the reasons I enjoy Texas Card House Dallas. The people that work there, and I knew going into this because I know who they are. Like, this is the GM there, the person who runs the room. This is his third room, and I trained him as a supervisor 9 years ago when he first became a supervisor in poker. And like, when I say it's his third room, I mean third room running the room, right? It's his second room as a GM. And, you know, you have to learn how to interact with vendors. You have to learn how you can even order stuff. You have to learn how to solve ridiculous problems with like toilets and urinals and like all this stuff. There's a lot to it is all I'm trying to say. Unless you're dead set, passionate, gonna do this, want this to be the rest of your life, I don't think it makes sense to open a poker room. It's not just an easy way to make money. That's what I'm trying to say. This is not a quick cash grab. Ton of risk goes into it, especially if you don't know what to do. Like, I do provide services for people to hire staff. If you're looking to hire a director, I could be a part of the interviews. If you're looking to hire shift managers, supervisors, I could be a part of those interviews too. That stuff I'm incredibly comfortable and competent at. And it's like, that stuff would make it a lot easier for me to open a room, but then they're still figuring out all these details. Anyway, that was a bit of a strong tangent, but I also, you know, I feel like part of my responsibility is to accurately represent what it takes in order to do these jobs. And I think that if I make it sound easy, or at least easier than it is, I'm doing a disservice to the industry. And also, there's a lot of competition out there too. So, you know, you might open a room in a place, not really know what you're doing, not really be doing it well, have no competition. And then when competition comes in, you're completely sunk because a major casino opens and they know what they're doing way better than you. Like, you know, you could make it for a year or two like that and then just have no business at all. There used to be like 100 card rooms that were open in Washington State when I was out there. I was there in the mid 2000s, and I haven't verified this, but from what it looked like, there's only like 4 that are open now because they ultimately outperformed everybody else. There's just a lot to it, is really what I'm trying to say. I was having that conversation with someone who works in one of those rooms that outperformed the other ones, and he is also the one that taught me to deal poker years ago. Let's see. David says, that makes sense, brother. I think I would want to learn those jobs before I took the plunge of scouting a location. You make valid points all fronts. That's a good point, that there are a lot of rooms, but most don't do it well. That makes sense as well. I appreciate that those responses too. I hate the idea of giving someone the impression that sinking, $1 to $2 million into something that they're really not that experienced at is a good idea. It's a terrifying idea, and there's not a ton of people in this industry that, like, and one of the things that's tough is, like, you're going to be interviewing people for these positions. Well, when it comes to casino managers, a lot of them are really good at selling people that they're the right person for something, whether or not they're the right person for something. And the ones that are more likely to be interviewing are the ones that are not currently working in other places, right? There's just a lot to it. Let's see. D1 Key says, is the best way to get into the gaming industry to deal table games? And am I crazy for wanting to do that instead of a normal office job? I'm currently in college, and I feel like people would think I'm crazy for doing something like that. We've had pieces of this conversation before. So the first thing I'll say is I grew up in the Northeast. I grew up in the Boston area, which is why I was talking about the Red Sox earlier and the Yankees a little bit. Where I grew up, people looked down upon people who were table games or poker dealers. And when I moved away from the Northeast, I realized a lot of other places think it's awesome and cool and all that stuff. I'm hearing what you're saying, and I'm sort of getting those Northeast vibes, right? Like, people would think I'm crazy for doing something like that. I'm in college, blah, blah, blah. I mean, a lot of people nowadays, they go to college because they're supposed to. They get their degree because they're supposed to. That degree is supposed to give them this backup life option where they can make decent money. They show that they have a brain. You can make your 50 to 60 to 70,000 a year. Or you could just train to be a poker dealer, take my course for $50 a month, go to school if you'd rather go to a school and have in-person training for $1,000, $1,200 one time. And then after 6 to 8 weeks, you have the entire skill set for a job that will pay you 25 to 40 bucks an hour, which if you do that out is like 50 to 80 grand a year, right? I mean, I don't think that's crazy. I think being in college is crazier than doing that if you don't care about the stuff you're learning in college, like I didn't. I have an electrical engineering degree from a top engineering school, and I couldn't care less about it. Like, I couldn't have cared less about it while I was there, but I did it because I was supposed to, right? So then I ended up being a table games dealer, and it did disconnect me from a lot of my friendships with people. It did disconnect me from the way that I looked at myself, right? Because growing up, I had this view of myself that I would be intelligent and doing things that people not only respect but are really impressed by and all this other stuff. And you know, it's just it doesn't matter. Just be happy is the thing I want to say. You know, if you support yourself, and especially if you're doing something that is enjoyable to you, and if you have the ability to have time to create the life that you want while you're supporting yourself, which being a poker dealer provides you, I say that's way better than some of these other paths. If you're going to college for something specific that you're passionate about, that's great. But if you're going to college for something that you don't know what the hell you're there for, you know, you have a degree that's not that meaningful to you, that's meant to be a stepping stone into something else. I mean, there's nothing wrong with getting this as another thing in your back pocket. I can tell you this, for my life right now, as long as dealing poker is a thing that exists in the country of the US, I will always be able to make $30+ an hour at just about any poker room I need to. I'll be able to go get hired there. I'll be able to have that extra cash in my pocket in order to pay for my life if that's something I need, and that's amazing. Most people don't have that available to them. You asked about table games. It just depends on where you're at. Like, you could learn table games first. You could go deal blackjack and Spanish 21 and 3-card poker and all these other games. And I did that too, but I just did that coincidentally. Like, dealing poker first or dealing table games first, it doesn't really matter. Whichever one's more appealing to you. They're just different, right? Like, there's a poker dealer that I know, and she used to be a table games dealer, and she started dealing poker 6 months ago, and maybe longer than that. But she says that she doesn't like poker as much because in table games she used to get to talk all the time, and you can't really do that in poker, and she doesn't play poker, so she found that out the hard way by getting in trouble and stuff. Maybe for her, table games is better because she doesn't care about poker and she likes being social and chatty and all this stuff. But if you like the game of poker at all, and I think in our conversations you've let me know that you do, then being a poker dealer probably makes more sense for you because there's a game that with competition going on. At least when you're dealing the higher stakes stuff, you can enjoy that stuff, or tournaments. Later in the tournaments, you can enjoy that stuff, and you get to be there for it, and you know, your life isn't that stressful. Also, poker, you get to sit down. Table games, you have to stand up most of the time, but that's just a small detail. I do think the money is slightly better in poker. There are some places where the table games tip rate is pretty high, but let's see. And in terms of like crazy for wanting that instead of a normal office job, you know, I have an engineering degree, like I said. I told myself out of college, I graduated in 2004. I told myself leaving college, I never want to have a job where I sit in front of a computer all day long. I realize now, 17 years later, that that's not actually true. The thing that I meant in my head was that I do not want a job that I hate sitting in front of a computer for, 40, 50, 60 hours a week. And all of the engineering jobs that I was in college for would have been jobs that I hated. Back in 2016, I raised a bunch of money. I am still an entrepreneur. I hired a bunch of people and I created software. And I went to that office that was my office that I was renting for my business every single day and loved it. I was there, Friday night, 7 p.m. until midnight every week because I wanted to be there because I was working on something I loved. So, a normal office job, I can totally relate to not wanting that and wanting to be a casino dealer, but don't write yourself off for not wanting a normal office job if you're doing something that you love. Just saying that. John says, just wanted to say thanks for everything. I live in London, UK, and I got a job at the biggest casino in the country. And I wouldn't have passed the table test without your guidance. Thank you so much. Appreciate that, John. So happy to hear that. I get stories like this all the time. I'm literally trying to push tables sometimes at Texas Card House, and people stop me. They're employees sometimes. They're players, and they tell me these types of stories. And the story that you're telling me here, I love this. It's really nice to hear this stuff. I'm sure there's way more of them that I don't hear about than the ones that I do. Every single time someone tells me a story like this, it makes me feel great about the effort that I put into this. It's a really cool feeling knowing that the work that I've done on YouTube has helped people in their lives go from worse situations to better situations. Appreciate you for sharing that very much, John, and I'm really happy to hear that. Oscar says, hi, Mark. I really want to know how to calculate the rake of 4 to 5% faster and how to take it from the table properly. So I think the thing that you're saying is a 4% rake and a 5% rake, how to calculate and how to take it from the table properly. So the first thing that I'll say is, if I were dealing in a game with a weird rake, the thing that I would do is I would train myself to count the pot, which you have to know the pot, especially if it's like an uncapped rake, like 5% uncapped or something like that. I would learn to calculate the pot, and I would be really good at that, which I deal pot limit, so I am really good at that. And that's something that comes with time and practice. And then I would just like, almost like in school learning vocabulary, I would memorize, instead of calculating anything, I would memorize how much is in the pot and how much rake I should have taken. If you memorize it all the way up to $1,000, you're fine. And I would do shortcuts for myself, right? So I would know that $100 was 5. I would know that 20, if it was a 5%, if it's between 20 and 39, that's $1, or that's $1. Yeah. If it's 40 and 59 in the pot, $40 pot to $59 pot, that's $2, right? I'm assuming a 5% uncapped rake here. And I would just know, 0 to 19 is 0, 20 to 39 is 1, 40 to 59 is 2, 60 to 79 is 3, 80 to 99 is 4, and then when you get to that 100, it's 5, right? And what I would do is, if it was an $837 pot, I would just add them, right? So I would do 8 times 5, okay, plus the 37, it adds $1 based on what I just said, right? So that would be a $41 rake. And so I would know how much was in the pot in my head at any given time, and I would have a memorized shortcut to know how much should be in the rake, and then that's how I would handle it. I think that answers what you were asking. Again, I always want the question to be satisfied properly, so please let me know if that answered what you're asking. If not, ask it again. David says, yeah, man, I feel like it's good to do something you want to do as well. I worked as an insurance adjuster for 10 years with one of the top carriers. I hated it, but it paid well. Yeah, I mean, Naval Ravikant, shout out to him. I don't know him. He's a very well-known philosopher and angel investor and all this stuff nowadays. And he mentions how, let me see. Oh, I forget what I was going to say. Oh, well, it happens. Doing the live stream for just like a bunch of consecutive times straight makes it pretty challenging sometimes. I always like when I have someone else here with me, because then I'm not talking. Have you ever tried talking to an audience for an extended period of time all in a row? It's a little bit challenging. What was I going to say about Naval? Hold on. I want to take a second to remember this. Oh, that's what he says. He says that... I think he said Confucius made this comment, that a person lives 2 lives. The second one starts when you realize that you only live once, right? And the point of that is, yeah, just like you're saying, if you're living a life for a reason that's not really what you want your life to be, eventually you're going to be like, why did I do that, right? I hated all that time. I could have been enjoying my life and feeling satisfied because I only get that one life. There should always be a way or a path to a way to do things that you want to do in life. A lot of people, they don't want to put the work into the path to go from where they're currently at to where they could potentially be, or they're worried about the judgment from their social network and they're afraid of losing their social network or something like that, which is really challenging and a big thing. But life can be tough like that. D1 Key says, really well put, appreciate it. Even if my limited time dealing poker, I hated not being able to talk and root for players. That's why table games seem so fun to me. I get to be social with players and make more relationships that way. I mean, 100% true for certain types of people. 100% true. Table games, you get to be so much more conversational, so much more chatty. It's the house and the player, and that's it. Like, it's the house versus the player, and it's really cool the way that it's set up in table games, where the person representing the casino actually can root for the other person to win because the house edge is built in no matter what you do. So the conversation can be much more enjoyable. I also feel like I can get the social interaction that I need as a poker dealer, but it's not the same as table games, which is absolutely true. John says, honestly, thanks so much for your YouTube videos. You're welcome. You changed my life. I love the energy you get in a casino. Yeah, that is a really cool feeling. Speaking to what D1 Keys said about not wanting to work a normal office job, part of the appeal to working in the casino is the casino environment. There's lights and noises, and you're not in you're somewhere like this, right? You're not in a office cubicle type of setup with the ability to put a plant in there that's supposed to bring energy to it. The energy is constant and it's from everyone around you. There is also a lot of negativity from the people there, and I can't undershadow that, right? It's just a real thing, but it is very, very powerful for sure. I do want to take a moment again and remind everybody that my reason for doing the live stream today is to notify everybody that I am changing my live stream date and time. It's no longer going to be on Tuesdays. It is moving to Sundays, just like the title of this says. It is going to be noon on Sunday, Eastern Time, 11 a.m. Central Time moving forward. And I'm doing that because I just think it's a better time to move to. And look, if I end up being wrong and I end up making a bad decision, I can always change it later. That's one of the nice things about choosing and running this on my own. But I appreciate all your patience with me as I do make this adjustment, but I just wanted everybody to know Sundays are going to be the new day and time, and I'm going to have to change some old video content I have that talks about Tuesdays, but moving forward it is going to be Sundays. I am still going to be here, and anybody that doesn't see it, that likes me and wants to be there, will eventually figure it out. And so I'll just, the thing I have to do is I just have to be consistent with anything, and it will start to make sense. So Oscar says, thank you so much, Mark. Your answer helped me a lot. That's great. Okay, so you were asking about that question. Yeah, memorizing the rake is definitely the way to go, for the record. Like, it should always be memorized. It's one thing I sort of want to redo in my course is talk more about that. I talk about it briefly, but like when I think about taking a rake, I literally never know exactly how much there should be. And one of the places where a dealer can make a mistake with taking rake is you could, let's say that you have $37 in the pot and you took $1 on a 5% rake, right? You've got that $1 there. Then there's a $4 bet and 2 calls. It's $12. So you're doing 12 more. You're like, wait, do I take 1 or 2 more dollars now? And like, you're trying to figure out the amount that you just took in the next street. And the real thing you need to do is just figure out the amount that's totally in the pot. And that's how to do it from there. So, yeah, stuff like that. But I appreciate you guys. I am going to wrap it, wind it down now. I know that I say I'm doing live streams on Sunday. This is just because I'm going to be unavailable this coming Tuesday. I'm going to start working at Texas Card House on Tuesdays, and anybody can come say hi to me there. I will be available out there. Oh, I do want to mention one thing. Shout out to Dalton. I ran into Dalton. I stopped by at Daytona's poker room. Congratulations to my friend Joe, somebody that I hired years and years and years ago. I was his very first supervisor, he likes to say, and I hired him as a dealer. He quickly became a dual rate because he's so capable, and now he is the director or poker room manager. He's the one that runs the poker room in Daytona in Florida. And big congratulations to him. As I was driving down the East Coast, I stopped by for like 45 minutes and said hi. It was really good to see him. It was really good to see what the room was like out there. And I ran into somebody named Dalton, who was a real cool guy. And I told him I'd shout him out. So Dalton, really cool meeting you in line. Let me see. I was just grabbing some food out there. And yeah, I mean, I run into people from time to time in different casinos, and I always appreciate you guys saying hi. Say hi. You know, I'm pretty approachable. We'll just chat for a second if I see you out in the world. Yeah, that was fun. It's fun. I've never had the experience up until I started putting a lot more time into True Poker Dealer. I never had the experience of walking into poker rooms and having people want to chat with me and tell me about the stories about how I helped them, like what John was saying. And it's a really cool experience. And I appreciate all you guys for spending the time to show that appreciation and talk to me and all that. D1 Key says, do you ever get players on tilt or just in general that you can see are playing irresponsibly financially? I know I pick your brain on this topic a lot. It's just something that I'm trying to justify in my mind. Right. And everybody needs to go through their own justification process for being willing to be in this industry at all. Totally get that. Yes, I see people on tilt all the time. I see people making irresponsible financial decisions by my own estimation all the time. It's hard. It's just that simple. Is it most of the people? I wouldn't say that I feel like it's most of the people there by any stretch, but yeah, I see it every single day, and you start to know which ones they are. One of the things about the industry is when you are a dealer, a supervisor, a shift manager, a director, you're aware of who the regulars are a lot of the time. They're the same people that talk to you, and it's like I hadn't dealt at Texas Card House in at least 6 weeks. I went back there this past Thursday, and I saw a lot of people that are the same people that are there all the time, you know? It's almost predictable who's going to be there on any given day. This is where they're spending most of their time. Now, in most of those cases, the people that are there every single day have the money in their life that's disposable to go and do that with their time. That being said, you know, you can tell as a dealer or as a supervisor or as a shift manager or as a poker room manager which ones are good and which ones are not. And it's definitely something that you know, I'm not somebody that's going to lie to you about this in order to make you more excited to do this job. You know, I'm just going to tell you how it is, and that's part of how I build my trust with you. And so yeah, there's definitely people I'm just like, I absolutely hope that you have money. Now, most of the time people are not coming to me and telling me that they don't have the money to lose, and then I watch them go lose it. It's not what's happening. But, you know, gamblers in general, poker players in general, they don't tell you when they shouldn't be gambling because they don't want that to affect your judgment of them. Every person in that poker room wants you to believe that they have a business being there. So that's something that, you know, you might enter the industry and you might decide for yourself that it's too hard. I think you'll be okay, if I'm being honest. It's not like, even if it happens 5 times a day where I just have that thought, you're very busy as a dealer. There's a lot going on. So that thought doesn't necessarily just stay and weigh. It's like you experience it and then you got to do your next thing because you're busy. I don't think it's quite as bad as you might think, but as a table games player, you might be worse because, I mean, none of the table games players are winning in the long run. That's for sure. That said, a lot of them can't afford it, but not all of them. I had a conversation with a friend of mine who plays in super high stakes games, and these are a lot of private games, and he was explaining to me that it's so nice being around people that have money, that can afford to lose the money that they're playing with, because you're no longer thinking about taking anybody's rent money, right? It's all about the competition, and he really enjoys playing the high stakes games with the people with large amounts of money because of that. It's 100% about the competition, and that part does sound pretty cool. The regular casino experience is like all over the place. So yeah, I mean, It's a hard thing to answer, but the majority of the time I'm not thinking about stuff like that at all, for what it's worth. But it does come up frequently, to a degree as well. Hopefully that was helpful. Let's see. SI says, "Hey Mark, been a while. I'm glad I made a live stream. Good to see you here. As a dealer, have you ever been a custom to players that you might have, let me see, that you might have had a table you would deal at by chance, where over time you learned their habits, were they bluffing or not?" Hold on. I think you're asking me if, as a dealer, I can, over time, learn a player's tendencies and be able to tell when they're bluffing, when they're strong, all that stuff. Yes, all the time. The better you are as a poker player, the more you'll be able to do this. I work with Poker Pro Mike Lockey a lot, and he has explained. I even interviewed him in a live stream called let me see, "Becoming a Poker Dealer to Become a Better Poker Player." He talked to me about how he ranges players while he's dealing constantly, and yeah, if he plays them at the table another day, he has a huge advantage against them. That is absolutely true. Most people are not going to be able to take that much advantage of that. It really takes learning poker from the professional perspective. Like, if you watch poker vlogs and all those types of things, you're really not going to gain much of a benefit as a result of it. For me, I am able to gain a benefit. I don't play them that much in poker. And I'm also not thinking about being a poker player a lot of the time when I'm there, but sometimes I choose to turn it on because it's interesting. And yeah, I can tell. But obviously, as a dealer, you're neutral and you're not supposed to give any of that information away. D1 Key says, "I just have to be like they are adults and are responsible for their decisions." Yes. I mean, look, the reality, D1 Keys, is that the casinos, including the poker room, have put a lot of energy into making every single moment and every single interaction and exchange satisfying, to the point where people just keep coming back and doing and doing and doing and doing. So it's tough because a lot of people are not in control of their habits. I read a book called Atomic Habits. I read another book called The Power Habit. I definitely recommend those books in terms of learning what is actually happening to the person's mind who is in the casino. I do wish that every person gambled responsibly. It would be cool if there was a simple and accurate way to ensure that that's what was happening all the time. Perhaps our future will include something like that. But, as it is right now, whatever your method is, whether you say to yourself that the people that are gambling are adults responsible for their decisions, or you use some other rationalization, I think, like, for me, when I think about it, I think that the person who owns the poker room is ultimately the one that's facilitating and creating the thing that you're talking about. I think that the person that's dealing the game is trying to make a living, honestly, at doing something that feels good for them. And one thing about poker that's cool is it is a game of competition, a game of skill. It does have a monetary reward, but there is a skill and experience, and it's weird. Like, people that play sports like basketball, you're not wasting your money when you go play if you're not good. You're just sort of having fun. If you go play poker and you're not good, you are essentially wasting your money. Although you're getting entertained, it's just really expensive. I don't know. There's a lot to say there, right? I think that when people have bad habits, that's what's tough. And, the casinos do constantly support responsible gaming, communicate responsible gaming. Poker rooms communicate responsible gaming. They offer help for people that are not gaming responsibly. Is it sufficient to get the job done to protect people? I can't really comment on that because I don't know, but I've definitely worked with people that are in charge of that stuff. They're good. The people that help people that reach out, it's just, there's a lot to this question, that's for sure. Let's see. Let me see. SI says, do you have a favorite type of game to deal? Hold'em versus Omaha, etc. Appreciate that question. I still think that my favorite thing to deal, look, you know, the table that has the most tips is always going to be the most exciting to deal for me, I think. It's just such a cool feeling that, like, you know, someone mentioned in a live stream they saw somebody get a $500 tip, right? That's pretty cool. I like dealing things that are a bit more interesting personally. I like dealing the live stream in Texas Card House. I like dealing final tables of big tournaments. I like dealing the late stage tables of big tournaments. I like dealing pot limit Omaha where they're interesting games, as long as it's toward the beginning of a string, meaning the first table after a break or the second table after a break. If I'm on a 6-table string, I don't want to see a challenging Omaha game there because I'm tired. You know, it's like dealers need breaks. You're locked in mentally, calculating, thinking, interacting with guests, making decisions. Should I call a floor? All this stuff constantly. I don't want to see that at the end of my 6-table string, please. But yeah, I mean, in general, I definitely do enjoy those types of games. I like 5-5 pot limit Omaha. I find the math there is not even challenging. That depends on how deep everybody is, not gonna lie. Like if players are playing 5-5 PLO and they're 10K deep, that can get a little bit challenging. But what else do I like? I don't really care for stud or super stud that much. I just don't find it that interesting. You know, I've dealt those games. I don't mind it if it's a tournament, I guess, especially higher stakes. I haven't dealt the World Series myself. I've only gone there to play. If I had dealt the World Series, maybe I'd be saying different things. Mixed games, I don't care for mixed games that much because my personal experience with dealing mixed games has been these super high stakes, you know, 300, 600 limit or 400, 800 limit. And the players at those games that I've dealt have not been as pleasant. They're sort of like money-crazed, whiny people who expect a lot and dehumanize the dealer. And it's like, you know that feeling as a dealer where you get in trouble without even doing anything just because they're anticipating it because they don't know you? Like, it literally takes the high-stakes players getting to know that you're not going to mess up for them to feel like you're not going to mess up. And that energy just comes at you constantly where they know if they don't know you, there's a chance that you're going to mess up, and it's for large amounts of money, and they just have this like horrible way of interacting with you because they feel like they have so much money at the table and at those games that they basically can expect the dealer to do the things that they want, which are different than what the industry teaches sometimes, right? There's little details about how they want either the pot or the discards or the you know, this or that. And so there's this like this vibe with some of these high stakes games where you don't, not only like there's nothing I could teach you or there's nothing that you could learn at the World Series to deal some of these high stakes games perfectly, right? You could learn almost how to do it perfectly, but then you have to actually do it and learn their specific way, and the casino caters to them because they have a lot of money and they have a casino that they could then go and have some of their poker players blow money in their casino for large stakes as well. So it's this whole weird vibe for the high stakes games. And I mean, the games themselves, like, yeah, I enjoy it. Like, I've dealt Chinese poker for high stakes before. Well, that one's not stressing. You don't do anything. I don't even keep track of the points. They give each other money, they set their hand and all that stuff. That's sort of fun when it's high stakes, but when it's $5 a point, it's just like, oh god. It's sort of funny like that. What other games are there that I like? Yeah, I'm just thinking like later stages of tournaments are definitely fun and chill, and the thought that goes into the decisions is interesting. Yeah, I hope that answered you. All right, last couple questions coming up, and then I'm going to jump off. So you guys let me know what you want to know, and then we'll call it a live stream, and then I'll see you Sunday of next week at noon Eastern, 11 o'clock Pacific, 11 o'clock Central. Appreciate you guys very much. What do we think here? Any last questions before I jump off? Thank you to everybody that's come and commented and said hi, and anybody that was their first time saying hi to me in the chat. Appreciate you there for sure. For those that didn't hear it, I'm going to be attempting to deal more than 40 hours a week for the next 6 months. I don't know that I'm going to make it the whole time, but I think I have the duty to myself to know what that's like. I've talked about it a lot, but I've never actually been somebody to do it. And I want to see if there's tips and tricks that I can have to make it so that the body's fine and the mind's fine and all these things. And hopefully this is a valuable experience. And I've also got money that I want to make in order to put towards specific things in my life that I'm excited about. And it should be interesting. You can catch me this week at Texas Card House in Dallas, 8 a.m. every weekday, Monday through Friday this upcoming week. So tomorrow, 8 a.m., I will be there. Appreciate you guys. Lil Venice says, thank you for the stream, Mark. You're welcome. Appreciate you. SI says, thanks. Great to catch these again. See you next Sunday. Perfect. Love that you guys know Sundays is the day. Appreciate you all. Talk to you soon.